This is perfect. So, hey everyone, thanks for joining the first session of OpsWorld. So, OpsWorld is a new program we have actually started at Zorp. So, this is a combination of both a newsletter and now a webinar. And mostly, we want to spend the time talking about mostly operations and operators who are running operations and talking about the problem statements we are actually finding over there, right? Hey Amit. So. So we actually think the operations is generally kind of like overlooked as things that are supposed to happen in the background. There are a lot of complications and a lot of nuances that actually go in operations which are not called out, and the best practices of that is not shared so widely. So our simple hope that through this session we'll talk more about the problem statements over there. What are some best practices people have actually adopted, and see if we can spread the word and make each other better. So that's kind of the focus for these particular sessions. So this is the first session. We generally want to talk about the ubiquitous spreadsheets that we use to run pretty much all of our operations. See how it actually came about and what we can actually do about it. Right. So that's kind of the idea. So before we get started, I'll probably do a very brief introduction about like myself. I'm one of the founders of Zorp. So my name is Bala, and some of you already know me. So Zorp is a platform that helps businesses, fast-growing businesses, to run their operations much better. Today, I have with me Afrid. Afrid, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. Hey guys, so I lead the growth team out here at Zorp. So I think I know Bala since the past 3 years. We work together at Bounce and now at Zorp, solving some very critical operations problems across various other industries. So I think talking from Bala's point of view also, we worked together in Bounce. We saw how much effort it is to build products for these internal operations and everything. I think that was the idea that sparked with Zorp to create Zorp. And from then on, it's been really great working with Bala.
Awesome. Likewise. All right. So it's not, if anyone else wants to introduce themselves, feel free to jump in. Amit, do you want to say hi? You're still on mute, by the way.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, hi. So we've been working with y'all, I think, since your inception, very early days. Yeah, so for rescue operations, I mean, Zorp is solving a very important, operations whole problem that we had, with the whole management of our field staff. It fit in exactly what we wanted at that point of time. And I'm happy to see that, on a very regular basis, you all are refreshing and adding to the capabilities. So we also have to keep updating to actually start using all these capabilities that you all are adding up.
Awesome. Thanks a lot for those kind words, Amit. Really amazing. Yes, Amit is one of our first customers. He's been with us since the beginning. So great to have him here. Right. Anyone else wants to say hi? Just do a gentle introduction. All right, so we can get started, so you can participate, throughout the conversation. So today we simply want to get started with talking about, how spreadsheets have taken over the world of operations, and why at least it makes sense for, when I'm sitting in office, I want to do some approvals, or I want to track some finance records, etc. Right? But when it comes to what we call frontline operations, which is mostly operations that happen on the ground, people still use, many companies still use spreadsheets, WhatsApp groups, forms, etc. Right? Just generally want to talk about it. Like, Afrid, you have some experience, doing this in your past. So what do you think? And why do you think that is the case?
Yeah. So from my experience, I joined Bounce in the operations side. So I've seen people use Google Sheets and spreadsheets across various use cases. Like, you might not even think that you could do this with Excel or spreadsheets, but they start using it. Like every day they do the data entry for various, take example for audit or anything. So they do this mostly, audits mostly are done through spreadsheets. So people use spreadsheets. I think it's because the first thing that I learned after joining my professional work is Excel. So I think people know how to use Excel and they just pivot and try to use it. And operations being wide across, it's adopted. I think that is the reason. Why would you think? Like, is it because lack of intent to learn new things? Is it some problem to adopt new tools, or they just want to stick with what they know? They don't want to learn new skills.
Yeah, so the at least my experience with operations has been right is no matter how small you are, no matter how large you are, any growing company doesn't tend to have like a standard structure to how they actually work, right? So for example, just like what Rescue over here. So when we actually met with Rescue, like they were like a really fast growing company, but their operations is very unique that you can't really take a out of the box business solution that is out there and you can start using it. And that is the same for like most of the other companies we have worked with also. So especially with the operations, things tend to be like so varied and things tend to change like so often. A ready-made solution doesn't necessarily fit. People give up hope and try to patch together with like a bunch of sheets and like forms, etc. So that's what I have seen actually yes tend to happen. At the same time, I think another big reason is that just let me know if you guys agree or disagree. Another big reason is that one thing that is completely non-negotiable when it comes to operations is tracking data, like knowing what actually happens. Ops is driven by metrics. The greatest ops folks out there are all about numbers, all about metrics. They don't care about anything else, right? So in the worst possible scenario, at least they should have all the numbers to look at and see how they're actually performing. So that's where I think spreadsheet kind of like does a job. So in the absence of great tools to execute great deals, to monitor in real time alerts, graphs, charts, etc., the absence of all of those, at least the basic thing that they actually need is having the data in one place which they can simply analyze, right? I think that is a problem statement that spreadsheets actually solves really well. And yeah, that's probably that's probably why spreadsheets is like so ubiquitous in this particular industry.
Right. But don't you think spreadsheets is actually like a postmortem of the ops? Like ops is done, something happens on the ground, it's done. Then people put it in the spreadsheets and do it. It's later, right? Like in an ideal world, what do you think the right product should do for operation?
Yeah. Sahil, you have any comments? You probably have the experience with working with really large workers over there. Yeah.
So spreadsheets for me personally, I prefer to use them as a project progress tools, right? Rather than just there are different people in my team who handle different projects, right? So any progress which is being by project, because it's a small team, right? A startup, so there are 5-6 mid-level managers working on similar kind of projects who are intertwined to each other. A customer success team is obviously talking to a compliance team, to an operations team, right? So a spreadsheet, allows them to work, independently as well as, together on that worksheet. And it's very easy for me to track the progress there, right? What's happening. So WhatsApp groups, though, give me the real-time visibility of what's happening on the ground, right? Because all of them, so the ground team is more comfortable as they're mobile, right? So, WhatsApp comes very naturally to them, right? So even the clients, it's not only us, right? Clients in the logistics space or in the last mile space prefer using WhatsApp, right? So, so that comes very naturally to them, and then we have to adapt that as well. And as you rightly said, in the absence of any other, good tool, I think WhatsApp works pretty useful for everyone. It's not only the us, the client side also prefers the WhatsApp communications.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm actually like, so I'm quite surprised at how large scale companies pretty much run things on like spreadsheets and WhatsApp groups. So we typically tend, at least one of my initial hypotheses when I got into this industry, is that typically people use these tools for really small scale operations, but when they start growing, they kind of like grow out of it. But I remember one of these incidents where, so we met with this customer. So this customer was running like $1 million business completely on Google spreadsheets. Like he had like these 10 different, Google Sheets, all synced automatically using like this Google scripts, and which creates like some kind of forms and everything was kind of like tied together very tightly. And they were able to kind of like run it at that scale. I think one of the things we actually underestimate is that with enough like manpower and kind of like effort put into it, a spreadsheet doesn't like really break until it becomes like super large. You can actually push the limits to some extent. So it kind of gives the comfort to the people that they can actually continue using it. Right. So probably it's a good segue to talk about something more interesting, right? Like, okay, so if these tools are so ubiquitous, used commonly, and kind of like solve some of the problems that we actually spoke about, what is that we are actually missing in this industry with these tools? Any thoughts around it? Anyone?
What are we missing, as in what can be added
Yeah, like
more?
for example, if spreadsheets and like WhatsApp groups solve all the problem, like obviously we will not be looking for better tools, etc. Right? So I'm
Right.
just asking, like, just by using these things commonly, like, what is that we are missing out at this point as a company? Let's say a company is using, like, since we are running on spreadsheets, what is that they're actually missing out is what I want to know.
Yeah, so Bala, what I think is connecting it to different apps, different softwares around, connecting spreadsheets to them would require, like you said, mentioned, scripting knowledge. So it comes to coding in some form. So the whole no code segment is what is not solved with spreadsheets. That is, of course, just one thing. There are many things that you cannot do on, or it's not very easy to do on through spreadsheets. So that is where I think solutions that you all are bringing in.
Yeah.
Is security an element, Wala?
Yeah. So security is, it definitely is one. Like the ability to provide like the right kind of rights and other things, roles, permissions, etc. is one.
Right.
So my thought is like slightly more like thinking from like a different perspective, right? I think most of these Excel spreadsheets actually tend to work when in a retrospective manner. Right. So for example, you send somebody to do a job. It could be like a delivery, or it could be like a home service, or it could be simply going, seeing a customer. So the person does the job. You capture the data either in real time, or you capture it somewhere else and update it to an Excel sheet. Actually, after you get in a WhatsApp group, you type in Excel sheet and store it, etc. Based on the data, you'll be able to do some analysis, see how the performance happened, what can be improved, etc. But pretty much everything is like a retrospective. Okay. What I have seen, it actually doesn't solve two things. So number one is the ability to control how a person is doing the job, and which is like all like frontline operations all about, right? When you're managing 1,000 people, you don't know how each other person is actually performing on the ground. Easy meeting the customer, easy collecting the right documents, easy saying the right things, easy actually going to the right location. The person is traveling within the specific time. The person is supposed to come back to the specific location. Are they doing enough work in a particular day? So this is where this is what is completely uncontrolled when you actually run without the right set of tools. It's about controlling or assisting the person to do the job in the right way, right? So, which is one, in my opinion. The second thing which I find usually as a problem is the ability to take like real-time corrective actions. Okay, so like you guys are actually in like very fast-moving businesses where typically the work actually happens in like 20 to 40 minutes or within an hour, right? That means you do like so many things in a day. That means the propensity of things to actually go wrong within a day or within a few hours is also like fairly high. That means you need to know things immediately and do the corrective action. Something is not going right, you should be able to take that call. The problem with spreadsheets is that it typically happens next day or end of the week, etc. People tend to manage this with some kind of like calls and other things, but it's only scalable so far. So this is what a company faces when they start growing a little larger, and that's where the normal spreadsheet WhatsApp group process actually tend to fail.
Mm-hmm.
You guys agree? What do you think based on your experience?
But Bala, are there different apps? So spreadsheet is basically input to what So there can be different apps which can obviously provide the input for the spreadsheet. The first point which you mentioned, right? They to track the productivity or track the locations, right? So I think there are different apps which currently provide the inputs to spreadsheets. I'm not able to relate to that. Second thing, obviously, much relatable that the corrective actions need to be taken very quickly, right? But first point, I was not able to relate much.
Yeah. So I was talking about a scenario where, let's say, you are you're not using anything, you're simply managing things via spreadsheet. That's like spreadsheet alone doesn't solve the problem. You need something more sophisticated to kind of guide the user to do things in the right way.
Right.
So I was just talking to kind of like Arpit earlier. So as we were discussing with one of these companies which has like these multiple stores. Okay, so they have like thousands of inventory items in each of these stores. So typically, they tend to do this audit practices. Okay, so these audits happen like once in a week, once in a month, depending on the kind of product, the kind of sale, etc., etc. And this particular team actually, so they have two audit people who runs this audit. What they do is they go take a printout of the sheet of what all the items are actually there in the system. They go to each location, they mark whether the item is present, not present, what is the quantity that is missing, mismatching, etc. Go around the store, finish this process. And these two guys come and give the sheets to a data entry person. The data entry person starts entering this data in a Google Sheet. And once the data is like completely entered, then they end up like reconciling in their central system, which is their central sheet. Right? Just for like a single store, they were spending close to 3 hours for each of these guys to do an audit, and 2 hours for the data entry person to kind of like enter this information. So to perform like a single audit, they were spending close to like 8 hours just to like do audit for like one store, right? So the thing like we were actually talking about is imagine if the person is able to go to the right location, like the right rack, simply scan the QR code in the rack, it should simply show him all the items which are in the rack. Say whether the item is present, not present. If it is not present, if there is a mismatch, enter what is a mismatch over there, and able to capture this particular information, right? So this is basically what they ended up like kind of like implementing. This whole process takes about like 2 hours for them to do the entire audit for the store, and they ended up saving around 6 hours of time. That means instead of 8 hours, spending 8 hours, they ended up spending like only 2 hours. And the error rate kind of also reduced from around 5 to 10% to close to 1%, right? So both from like obviously the data is like much more accurate from an economics point of view. Instead of spending around like 700 rupees in a day, they ended up spending like around 90 rupees a day, right? So that's quite a big 182 rupees a day. So it's quite a big of a difference, etc. So that's kind of like the improvement they actually saw. The reason why I'm calling this out is as ops folks, like pretty much all of us have a good amount of experience with operations. So as ops folks, we actually understand what a good tool, what efficiency a good tool can actually kind of like bring in, right? Now the question I have is that if we know that like this can like you have like a improvement in error detection or error correction, and you have an improvement in the cost savings, etc. why do companies don't actively look for, better tools to run their operations? Like, what is your view? Is it the lack of awareness, or there are not many tools available, or they're not fitting, etc.? What are your thoughts?
Well, I think it's comfort of working and with spreadsheets and lack of awareness. Okay, there might exist something which can be used at a scale. So
Yeah.
I think those two factors. Everyone is comfortable with Excel.
That's very true.
Good or bad, but yeah.
Yeah. No, so the thing about like this, especially folks who are good at Excel, right?
Yeah.
So I used to manage product, like you guys know that. So I used to manage product before, and when we go to this finance team and operations team, we really get like a guilty feeling the way we see they use Excel. So we talk about like people who can develop, people who can build products versus people who are running the business, etc. But the kind of like products they tend to build on Excel sheets using like macros or automations or the way they actually operate, etc. There clearly is no different. It's just that like the industry kind of like evolved in such a way where people who write these scripts and codes tend to be called like developers, and the people who use probably different tool and different kind of language to manage all of these are like called non-developers, in my opinion.
Macros is still a wow factor, Bala. Not a lot of person in my team is able to run macros to automate a few things, right? So I said, okay, well done, rather than someone just using spreadsheets to work on those formulas. So yeah,
that's very true. Very true. So how do you like typically solve this in your team side? Like when you look at, let's say, some inefficiency in your operations,
right.
how do you encourage your team, or how do you actually plan this activity that this is an area that we need to improve? How do you go about like finding these tools, and how do you generally asking for a process so that we can all learn from how that behavior actually works?
So as I told you, currently we don't have any other tool apart from what we have made internally for our operations, right?
Right.
So those internal panel or internal things which we have, right? They're kind of working with us at the current scale, right? But whenever there is a need for some, so BAU runs fine, there is no change in that, right? So, but when anything specific to a client's requirement comes in, that that is not BAU, right? So then we need to figure out something that okay, this is not happening. So then we go to the prod guys, right? So tech and product obviously need to implement that in the case of automation of a lot of things. So we run a lot of things again on Excels, right? Till the time tech develops that, so they have their own timelines to work on, right? So the sprints takes from minimum 3 months to 4 months, right? So we still manage that with Excel sheets. So I don't know, to be very honest, currently, that apart from how tech can automate a lot of things for us internally, right? I don't know or see currently any tools available. Apart from, there are some plug and play API integrations which we are done, right? So we being into a staffing industry, right? So a lot of HRMS optimization tools we are doing bank API integrations. So those API integrations which are also obviously available externally, we are doing that. But again, those are very minor, incremental updates, but nothing which enables me to run operations more efficiently.
Makes sense. Just before we proceed, right, can you give some context to the whole group about what you actually do? We never covered your introduction, unfortunately.
Yeah, so I'm working with a startup called Gigforce, right? So basically, we are a tech-enabled staffing solutions company. We started 2 years back, primarily with last mile as a category, right? So all these clients who had last mile delivery executors as a requirement. So we were trying to fulfill that through our in-house recruiters and channels. So last mile, obviously because of COVID lockdown, that picked up a lot. But it was not sustainable enough to sustain the business on last mile. So gig is what we think is the future of work, right? So whether it's blue collar or gray collar, that's just a collar name attached to it. But a lot of companies want to reduce their fixed costs, right? On whether it's sales or operations. So we think that if we can variabilize that cost somehow, right? Get that gig flavor into a lot of operations or sales. That's what we're trying to aim to do. So make this whole workforce a gig force. That's the whole concept of things right now as it stands.
Awesome. Awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Cool. So after like question to you, so since Sahil kind of like brought up the point of tech and product and how they actually build products for operations, right? So the way I understand like the pace at which operations actually moves, the paces at which the in product team tends to move, just inherent nature of how things actually work in those teams tend to be like kind of like very different. So in your experience in the past, like how did you first of all, how did you manage the process of getting the things done from like technology and product teams is one. Second is how do you manage the intermediate gap till the features actually come in?
Right. So as you rightly mentioned, the iterative cycles in operation is quick. Like because operations happens, as you said, it's a 30-minute job, 40-minute job, your feedback loop is quicker. So operations keeps iterating it until it is the most efficient process, because end of the day, anybody, finance or anybody leadership, they come into cost, operations is the one they touch. So
Yeah.
so so you need to keep iterating it till you have the most efficient process. So what happens, you come up with your first V1, you give your product requirements, product team starts working it, then you figure out your feedback is quicker, but your tech team is not able to adapt to it because they have their own sprint cycles and everything. So in my experience, what happens as a stopgap, we tend to, as we are discussing the same thing, like we tend to WhatsApp or Google Forms or spreadsheets in the stopgap solutions to just match what the product is lacking right now. But other than that, change management is something that is also had been in my experience. So once the gig force is used to a certain behavior and you change it, the product will take some time. So until product comes, you will give a stopgap solution like a spreadsheet. So your gig force is used to it. Next, when the product matures and you come up with a new version, the gig force needs to adapt to the new product features. So there, the change management process is also a tough thing to crack. Like, I mean, sure, Amit also has faced this with them, like the retraining and everything, because workforce gets used to a behavior. They are more concentrated on your operations rather than using an app or a product. So the change management and all these things is what lengthens the cycle. So yeah, that's pretty much answers your question, I suppose.
Yeah, nice. Amit, do you want to talk about the change management process? Like how does the adopting new product to people on the ground, how does that effort look like? What is your experience with it?
Yeah, the thing is, depends on the type of people you're working with now, and most of our field force are not the educated setup. So naturally, getting them to change and adapt to newer systems, it takes some convincing. Some people are a little more progressive. Again, it's a percentage 20-80 rule, and 80% of them you need to push it. And the problem, in operations, you want them to adopt, of course, but if you do not manage them well, you'll end up losing workforce, and you'll have to again go through that whole hiring process, which no operations person wants to get into, at least in bulk. That you don't want to, if you lose 20%, it might be okay. When it is more than that, it becomes a pain to handle. So yeah, the thing is, you'll have to manage that. You'll have to inform them about this change beforehand. You'll have to tell them the benefits of it, where they stand to gain from it, and that's when there is a higher likelihood of it working.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. But Sahil, you must be doing this hiring part.
Yeah. we have gone through a lot of iterations, Bala, right? So whether in terms of the ground force, because see, staffing in last mile has an inherent problem of so both double whammies of higher CAC and higher attrition, right? So we went through a lot of iterations in terms of getting more tech enabled ground force, and changing a lot of payout structures as usually happens on ground force. So hiring has, because see, these people, so we never hired freshers per se, right? Because we never wanted to get that, we wanted to get that growth engine running from day one, right? So someone who has prior experience of sourcing or recruitment comes into our forte, and he keeps the ground running from day one. And all these people are coming from some people are coming from different startups, say a Zomato or a Swiggy or a Dunzo, right? But their experience there has been very similar to what we wanted to give. So at a recruiter, working in a Zepto or a Zomato, right? He still operates on WhatsApp groups, right? So that has been his life thing. So if you want to, we made a TL workspace, on our app, right? So it kind of the adoption wasn't great, right? So we had to push that adoption because we wanted to see those numbers, coming in rather than just WhatsApp groups, right? Because uh, recruitment in last mile is a huge, demand-driven thing, right? And
Yeah.
unless until you don't know the actual numbers, right, you're always in a dreamland, right? So unless until the guy comes on the app, he gives his documentation on the app, the TL verifies the app. So a lot of things were made on TL workspace, but the adoption was pretty poor in the initial phases, and we took a lot of time to iterate on the TL workspace, and then we kind of gave them a MVP, right? This should suffice and not put a lot of burden, because they said, okay, sir, I'm getting a lead, I'm trying to get the interviews done, I'm getting the person, so I don't have time, I'll just send you updates on WhatsApp groups, you do whatever you want to do with that, right? I'm not going to use the TL workspace every day for checking checkouts and managing my leads. I'm more than capable to do that on WhatsApp groups, right? So it's up to you, how do you manage that?
Okay. So you mentioned a point about pushing them to like do the adoption. Like
Yeah.
what things worked for you and what didn't work with respect to improving the overall adoption?
So, see, the problem which we faced initially was the product was made with the leadership's understanding, right? So, including me. So I won't shy away from that. So we didn't take a lot of inputs from them per se, right? So the end users input was not there initially, right? We thought that this is what we need to track, this is what we need to measure, right? So let's build that, right? But in the end, what's actually happening on the ground, the metrics remain the same, the output metrics remain the same, but the way they are supposed to run, right, we didn't take that into account, right? So it kind of became too much complicated for them to understand first, right? So first, the purpose was not very clear, right? Because see, if you tell someone that, boss, you're doing a shoddy work, right, and I'm going to track your metrics day in and day out, right, that creates a lot of thing, okay, why now, right? If I'm doing good, then I'm doing good, right? Second thing was, obviously when we made it complicated, so the UX was not that great, right? So a lot of things which were like daily affairs, like a BAU, they were kind of hidden somewhere, right? So we took a lot of feedback, right? As I told you, we iterated a lot, and then obviously we reached a certain adoption of around 75 to 80% of daily users, right? So that was a journey of around I think 8 to 9 months.
Wow.
So that's the story, so we learned a lot there.
Yeah, Sahil, I've faced this same problem. Like, do you think it's a matter of intent? Like, they don't want to do it. It's not tough. I mean, we make the product in such a way that it is capable of handling. I mean, it's easy to use for them, but Is it a matter of intent, do you think?
I think so, yes. Right. So intent is a very strong word, Afred, right? If so, see, there are all types of people in a ground workforce, right? So there are some people who are doing excellent, so they feel, why? What's the need? I know I'm performing well. Why do I need to do this? And then there are people who don't do well. Then they are in the third. If I'm exposed to the system, right, I might be kicked out of the system. Right. So both kind of people, right, have different strong oppositions to using a product, right, and they're not used to it, right, unless until you tell them that if in some case it enhances their productivity, right, or it makes their life easier. That's the simple message, I think, which we need to deliver, right? Rather than you saying, okay, I want to track these metrics, that's why this app is being used.
I think it's
right?
very good to put this last sentence.
Yes.
So anything just so they're happy, they just put in the WhatsApp groups, right? It's convenient, right? So convenience, if you solve for convenience for this ground workforce, I think that can go a long way.
Yeah. Actually, it's a very deep thought, right? Well, exactly what Sahil mentioned is, I really love that. So we don't, we often go with the intention of saying that, hey, I'm going to track how many orders you actually do. That's what our default behavior are going on, because that's what we want.
Right.
What matters to him is that, hey, like instead of you going and searching for the location, instead of you trying to call the customer and trying to figure all this out, I'm going to make it like super. I'm going to make your life easy so that you can do much more and you can earn much more money.
Right.
And this is a mistake I've also made like plenty of times in the past, and it's it's kind of like hitting the nail on the head. Nice. All right. So just want to open it for the forum, see if any other topic you guys actually want to discuss before we can just get to a close.
I think Bala, I'm sorry, I'm adding one more point, right? We get into this mode that everyone knows Excel, right? I've seen, particularly in my team, though I have a very strong thing that if someone doesn't know Excel, he's not fit for ops, right? So that's one bias which I always have when I'm interviewing a new candidate as well. But still, if he has other qualities, if he has done something, and if he, so there are a lot of things which can go wrong with Excel, right? So even a payment can go wrong with Excel, right? So if that is being taken care by some other tool, right, I think that can help internally as well, right? So
yeah. So I want to touch upon the point you mentioned, like, is knowing Excel an absolute qualification for somebody to get into operations? What is your thought?
See, again, as we don't have any other tools, right? So unless until you don't know, how to put the numbers in and quickly make a pivot, and put a basic report out. I'm not expecting you to do a lot of magic in that, but VLOOKUP or HLOOKUP or pivot or a graph, right? So that's what we work on daily basis, right? So that's what I expect as a minimum requirement, right? But I still see a lot of people struggling with that.
Yeah.
Because Excel is not taught in MBA schools, right? Excel is how you learn it on a when you use it, right? So you can't read Excel and learn. You have to practice Excel and learn. So I've seen a lot of things going wrong. Data being wrongly presented because that person doesn't know how to use Excel. So kind of a non-negotiable, but I'm trying to figure that out somehow.
Interesting. Probably they should teach in school, right? Because
absolutely, yeah, it's
every day in their life will end up using Excel.
Yeah. So I just for this. So my first job, I didn't know Excel. Right. So my boss told me to do some kind of way. So I was doing it manually. I was checking Google every now and then, right? So it took me around 6 hours and I was not finished, right? So And then my boss comes to me and says, "Ki, it is not done." No, it's not done. What happened? This is, I have reached. So I didn't tell him. Obviously, I don't know Excel, right? So then I told him, it's being done 50%, and I'll take some time. It's not. It's hardly a work of 1 hour, right? What are you doing? So then I kind of okay, fine. So then that struck me. Okay, I need to learn Excel, right? So this was way back in 2012, right? So that's how my things are. But I still see a lot of freshers, a lot of people still struggle with Excel, and it's just disheartening, to be honest.
Yeah. Same here. I didn't know Excel. I didn't learn Excel till 6 years into my work experience. I have a similar story where somebody abused me.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you think about it? Like, is Excel like kind of like a must-have for operations?
The thing is that, how much it is used internally, it depends on that, right? So if it's widely used in the organization, and that tool is widely used, that because we've grown up with that, to do certain things, crunch numbers, show data, formulas, all of that, we've all been used to doing it on Excel from our education days, right? So yeah, with that, currently, yes. But then, there are newer tools coming up like yours and, Airtable that we use. Different things, tools are coming up where these reports can be all auto-generated, with basic coding knowledge, not even coding knowledge. So I think with time, as companies adapt to these things, it'll be lesser required. It's finally what you're trying to understand, get a report, understand the data, right? So right now you need it because you have to do it yourself. But if it's all auto-generated and it's throwing numbers at you, or the reports at you, you'll not need it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so that's actually a very good thought. So one of the things that we internally keep discussing about is, at least from an operations point of view, how do we kind of like enable pretty much everyone to get the right information without necessarily feeding in like the same similar input. Like what Sahil mentioned, right? Like there are a lot of mistakes that actually happen in operations mainly because of how manual input of information, manual input of entering data into Excel sheet, trying to create those formulas, etc., etc. But I think we are moving to a world where most of the data generation and data manipulation can still be done by sophisticated systems. Data consumption is what we actually care about, right? Which is mostly reporting, alerting, and those kind of stuff. And that's where, and probably that's the only thing that we actually need to know about. Like, how do you ask the right question? Like, for example, ChatGPT is a good example. Like, it's all about like how do you ask the right question. As long as you have the underlying data and the infrastructure, you should be able to spit out the right answer. So people need not know more about how to enter, how to process, etc., etc. So hopefully that's a world we'll get to.
Right. The thing is, in operations, you have a lot of variables, right? You have, time of the day, the date of the week, people, the type, the workforce. You have so many variables. So that's why generating that right report for that person, everybody wants it a little different. So yeah, you need those things in place where it is more flexible to generate.
And it also needs context. I think the most, like, people often underestimate how metrics driven operations is. A lot of people think that it is people management, but a lot of how operations actually works is like through metrics and numbers, right? So whatever we come up with and whatever we actually try to do, like it needs to have a lot of context about what the business is, how the business actually runs, what are the different variables, who are the people involved, etc., and kind of like fine tune that. Yeah. All right. So yeah, probably is a good note to end the session. I'll kind of like leave it open for the next minute or so to see if you have any other questions and anything else you want to discuss or anything else you want to hear from us in the next sessions. Yeah, and we'll probably end the session at that note.
Bala, are you making something to just which can offset or reduce this thing on dependence of ops on worksheets?
Absolutely, that's kind of our basically I'm talking about Zorp a little bit. So what we actually our aim is to enable companies to quickly get access to good tools to run their operations, right? So pretty much what frontline operations you have, just like how easy it is for you to create a Google form and start collecting some data, you want to enable a similar kind of easy experience via a proper sophisticated tool. Okay. Let's give you an idea. So today, right now, Zorp actually enables any company to create a very powerful Android, iOS, and a reasonably powerful web application to run your operations. And it takes like 10 to 15 minutes for you to build the whole thing. It doesn't take a lot of time. And this is to put the application, push it to App Store and Play Store, download, start using it, and start executing your tasks. So that's all it actually takes.
Okay.
So that's where we have actually started from. We started with frontline operations, but our key goal is to kind of like evolve that and make it like a ubiquitous tool for entire operations. So we think like by providing an application which can give you a lot of control over how people do the work and also kind of like giving you real-time alerts, reportings, etc., you'll be able to improve your efficiency. You'll be able to do things better, etc. Right?
Okay.
So that's what we are trying to solve.
Okay.
Yeah. And thanks for letting us plug in. Anything else anyone wants to call out? Or what kind of session do you guys would like to see in the future?
Because I would be happy to see, in terms of operations, listening to people who have been there, done that, solved a particular problem, a more specific problem, and the before and the after, the effects of it. So, yeah, the whole reason being, you can take that learning forward, right, in things that we do.
Yeah, that's a good idea. So we have some very exciting people who are coming to talk to us in these sessions. So hopefully those will help. But any particular person you think we should actually talk to, we are connected anyway. We'll do it offline. And you can actually send me the recommendations.
Yeah.
We'll find something. Yeah.
I'll surely write in.
Okay. Sounds good, everyone. Thanks for joining the session. This has been quite great. I definitely enjoyed it. So hopefully we'll do these open conversations also from time to time. I think it will actually help quite a bit to come around and talk about the general observations we are seeing. And anyway, have a good night and take care. Bye bye.
Thanks, Bala.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you,
See
guys.
you all.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.